The desperate call Captain Marcus Webb stared at the holographic display floating above his desk aboard the UES Vengeance. The message had arrived through encrypted channels from the Galactic Coalition, marked with the highest priority seal. After 3 decades of service in Earth's Navy, he had never seen anything quite like this. The Coalition representative, a tall reptilian being called Vorthak, materialized in his ready room through quantum communication. His scaled features showed clear signs of exhaustion and fear. "Captain Webb," Vorthak began, his translator rendering his words in perfect English, "we need your help." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "My help? The Coalition has millions of ships and warriors from dozens of species. What could one human captain possibly offer?" Vorthak's eyes dimmed. "It's not just one human we need. It's what humans represent." He paused, gathering his thoughts. 3 months ago, the Devourers emerged from the galactic core. They consume everything in their path. Entire star systems, gone in days. We've lost 17 worlds already. The hologram shifted, showing footage of massive black ships that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved through space like living things, tendrils reaching out to wrap around planets before crushing them into debris fields. "Our finest generals have tried everything," Vorthak continued. "Strategic retreats, combined fleet actions, even desperate last stands. Nothing works. They adapt to our tactics within hours. Our computational warfare systems can't keep up with their evolution rate." Marcus studied the alien's face. "So why call us? Humans barely have 50 ships capable of deep space combat." "Because," Vorthak's voice dropped to almost a whisper, "you fight like no other species we've encountered. When cornered, when outnumbered, when facing impossible odds, humans do something that defies all logic. You become unpredictable. Savage. You fight with a fury that terrifies even your allies." The captain stood and walked to his viewport, looking out at the stars. "You want us to be your monsters?" "Yes," Vorthak admitted. "We need monsters to fight." "Monsters?" "The Devourers have consumed races that were ancient when your species was still learning to make fire. They've faced every type of warfare imaginable. Except one." Marcus turned back to the hologram. "What makes you think we can succeed where you failed?" "Because 3 days ago, one of our scout ships encountered a human merchant vessel being attacked by Devourer scouts. The merchant ship was destroyed, but not before recording everything. The human captain, facing certain death, did something none of our species would consider. He rammed his ship directly into the largest Devourer vessel at maximum speed while overloading his reactor." Vorthak's expression changed to something resembling awe. The explosion not only destroyed both ships but created a chain reaction that crippled the entire scout fleet. "For the first time since this war began, we have footage of Devourers retreating." Marcus felt a grim smile cross his face. "And you want more humans to do the impossible?" "We want humans to teach the galaxy how to survive." The monsters awakening within 48 hours of accepting the Coalition's desperate plea, Captain Webb found himself aboard the massive Coalition command ship Eternal Harmony, surrounded by the greatest military minds from across the galaxy. The war room buzzed with translation devices as dozens of species debated strategy. General Zephix, a crystalline being whose body chimed with each movement, gestured toward the tactical display. "The Devourers have established a beachhead in the Kepler sector. Our projections show they'll consume the industrial worlds of Nexus Prime within 6 days. Admiral Thorvin, whose tentacled form floated in a specialized tank, added his concerns. We've positioned 300 ships in defensive formations around the system. Standard Coalition battle doctrine. Marcus stepped forward, his human uniform stark against the exotic appearances of his new allies. That's your first mistake. The room fell silent. Several aliens exchanged glances that clearly questioned the wisdom of trusting their fate to this primitive species. Explain, General Zephix's crystalline voice rang out. Marcus activated his personal data pad, and the tactical display shifted to show his analysis. You're fighting them like they're another conventional enemy. Look at their attack patterns. They expect organized resistance. They've evolved to counter systematic, logical approaches to warfare. He highlighted several points on the display. Every engagement you've fought has followed predictable patterns. Formation flying, coordinated. Strikes, retreat when losses reach certain thresholds. The Devourers adapt because you're giving them time to learn. Admiral Thorvin's tentacles writhed in agitation. Are you suggesting we abandon millions of years of military evolution? I'm suggesting you embrace chaos, Marcus replied. Humans didn't become apex predators on Earth by following rules. We survived ice ages, volcanic winters, and countless extinction events by adapting faster than anything else on our planet. He pulled up footage from human conflicts throughout history. We don't just fight to win. We fight to ensure our enemy never threatens us again. Total warfare. Complete commitment. No rules except victory. The aliens watched in growing horror. As Marcus showed them examples of human military tactics. Kamikaze attacks, guerrilla warfare, scorched earth policies. Strategies that prioritized psychological impact over immediate tactical advantage. This is barbarism, whispered Commander Lyrics, her insectoid features clicking with disgust. This is survival, Marcus corrected. The Devourers think they understand warfare because they've conquered civilized species. They've never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything for a single decisive blow. General Zephix's form brightened. You propose we abandon formation combat entirely. I propose we make every human ship a weapon of mass destruction. No. Retreat protocols. No surrender codes. Every captain gets complete tactical autonomy with one mission: inflict maximum damage regardless of personal survival. The room erupted in protests from multiple species, but Marcus continued. We are not going to outthink them or outgun them. We are going to outcrazy them. Make them afraid to engage us because they never know what insane thing we'll do next. Admiral Thorvin's tank bubbled with agitation. This strategy could result in the complete destruction of your fleet. Marcus smiled grimly. Admiral, my species once had a saying, victory or Valhalla. We are already at war. The only question is whether we die as warriors or as prey. He turned to address the entire assembly. Give me 50 volunteer crews from each coalition species willing to learn human tactics. In return, I'll show you how to turn every ship in your fleet into something the Devourers have never encountered before. What's that? General Zephix asked. A nightmare that fights back. The Devil's Disciples training began immediately aboard a converted Coalition research station in the abandoned Helix Nebula. Captain Webb had requested volunteers from each species, but what arrived exceeded his expectations. The Coalition had sent their most desperate warriors, soldiers who had lost everything to the Devourers and craved revenge above survival. Lieutenant Commander Jade Hawkins, Webb's second-in-command, watched as human instructors worked with their alien counterparts. "Think they'll adapt to our methods?" she asked, observing a group of Altarian bird warriors practicing close-quarters combat techniques. "They have to," Webb replied. "The Devourers consumed their homeworlds. They understand what we're really fighting for now." The training program was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human military doctrine focused on three core principles: adaptability, aggression, and acceptance of losses. Coalition forces had always prioritized preservation of forces and equipment. Webb's program threw those concepts out the airlock. Sergeant Rex Morrison, a grizzled veteran of Earth's corporate wars, demonstrated urban combat techniques to a mixed group of crystalline Vorthians and gaseous nebuloids. "Forget your formation training," he barked. "When fighting room to room on a hostile ship, your only formation is chaos. Move fast, hit hard, never let them predict your next position." The aliens struggled initially. Millions of years of evolutionary programming favored coordinated group tactics. But desperation proved a powerful teacher. Within days, they began incorporating human unpredictability into their natural abilities. Captain Nix Valor, a Centaurian whose species communicated through color changes, had lost her entire family to the Devourers. She approached Webb during a training break. "Your people really fight with no regard for survival." Webb considered his answer carefully. "We fight with complete regard for survival. The difference is, we understand that sometimes dying for the right cause is the only way to ensure our species survives." Meanwhile, Commander Torres worked with Coalition engineers to modify their ships. Traditional Coalition vessels were marvels of efficiency, designed for long campaigns with minimal casualties. Human modifications turned them into guided missiles. With life support, remove all non-essential systems, Torres instructed a group of Altarian technicians. Crew quarters, recreational facilities, extended life support. Replace everything with weapons, armor, and overcharge systems. The alien engineers protested that such modifications would make long-term deployment impossible. Torres smiled grimly. "These ships aren't designed for long-term deployment. They are designed to hit the enemy so hard that long-term deployment becomes unnecessary." The most controversial part of the training involved psychological conditioning. Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of Earth's Military Psychology Division, worked with species that had never experienced the concept of berserker rage. "Anger is not mindless," she explained to a group of pacifist harmony dwellers whose species had evolved beyond violent emotions. "Controlled fury is the most focused state a warrior can achieve. You're not fighting for ideology or territory. You're fighting for the right of your children to exist." By the end of the third week, something remarkable had happened. The Coalition volunteers had absorbed human tactical thinking while retaining their species' unique advantages. Vorthian ships that could phase through solid matter learned to appear inside enemy vessels. Altarian pilots whose reflexes operated at superhuman speeds became impossible to target. Nebuloid warriors who existed as living gas learned to sabotage enemy systems from within. Webb watched the final training exercise from the observation deck. Mixed species teams moved through mock Devourer ships with deadly efficiency. They no longer fought like civilized soldiers following rules of engagement. They fought like survivors with nothing left to lose. "They are ready, Lieutenant Commander," Hawkins observed. Webb nodded grimly. "As ready as anyone can be for what we are about to do." Intelligence reports indicated the Devourers were massing for their final assault on the core worlds. The Coalition's remaining fleets were positioned in desperate defensive formations around the most populated systems, but Webb's mixed force would not be joining those defensive lines. Their mission was different, more dangerous, and potentially more decisive. They were going to attack the Devourer home base directly. Madness, the Coalition High Command had called it when Webb proposed the plan. Suicide, others had whispered. Webb preferred to think of it as evolution in action. Into the abyss. The journey to the galactic core took 14 days through hyperspace corridors that no Coalition ship had ever dared travel. Webb's fleet consisted of 50 vessels, each one modified beyond recognition from standard Coalition designs. Human engineers had turned elegant exploration ships into weapons of war, while alien crews had learned to think like human warriors. Captain Crick's Shadowtail, a reptilian saurian whose species valued honor above all else, commanded the modified cruiser Blood Oath. His crew had initially resisted human tactics, considering them dishonorable. Now, after losing 3 colony worlds to the Devourers, they embraced the human philosophy completely. Target acquired, reported his navigator, a multi-owned hexapod whose reaction time had been enhanced with human stimulants. Devourer patrol fleet, 12 vessels, bearing Mark 77. Traditional Coalition doctrine would have called for careful approach, formation tactics, and measured engagement. Crix had learned better. All ships, attack pattern Chaos 7. No survivors. The modified Coalition vessels struck like a pack of wild animals. Ships that should have maintained formation scattered in seemingly random directions, each captain using their species' unique abilities to maximum advantage. The Devourer patrol, expecting organized resistance, found themselves facing something they had never encountered. Vorthian phase ships materialized inside enemy hulls, detonating their modified reactors from within. Nebuloid pilots, their gaseous forms immune to vacuum, abandoned damaged ships to manually sabotage enemy systems. Altarian crews used their natural speed to ram damaged vessels at velocities that turned both ships into expanding clouds of plasma. Devourers are attempting to adapt, reported the tactical officer aboard Webb's flagship Human Fury. They are modifying their formation to counter our approach vectors. Webb smiled coldly. Signal all ships. Implement Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega was the most human tactical doctrine of all. When the enemy adapts to your tactics, change the entire nature of the engagement. Instead of continuing the space battle, the Coalition fleet did something unprecedented. They landed on the Devourer ships. Boarding actions had been considered impossible against Devourer vessels. Their hull composition absorbed most energy weapons, and their internal atmosphere was toxic to most known life forms. But human engineers had developed suits that could protect Coalition species, while human combat doctrine turned disadvantages into weapons. The battles inside Devourer ships were unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human-trained Coalition forces moved through alien corridors like living nightmares, using the Devourer's own toxic atmosphere against them. Crystalline Vorthians conducted electricity through the ship's hull, turning entire sections into death traps. Insectoid hexapods used their natural ability to navigate in zero gravity to attack from impossible angles, but it was the humans themselves who proved most terrifying to the Devourers. Webb led boarding parties with the same savage efficiency that had made humans apex predators on Earth. When conventional weapons failed, they used improvised explosives. When ammunition ran out, they fought with tools and bare hands. When facing overwhelming odds, they smiled and charged forward. Commander Torres found herself fighting alongside Captain Nix Valor in the depths of a Devourer bioship. The alien vessel's organic walls pulsed with malevolent life, while chittering sounds echoed from the darkness ahead. Motion sensors are useless here, Torres reported, checking her equipment. The whole ship is alive. Nix's skin patterns shifted to display determination mixed with battle joy. Then we hunt by instinct. They advanced through corridors that seemed designed to induce claustrophobia and terror. The Devourers had learned to use psychology as a weapon, creating environments that broke the will of their enemies, but they had never faced humans who found such environments familiar. Torres had grown up in the underground cities of Mars, where darkness and confined spaces were simply facts of life. The oppressive atmosphere that broke other species only reminded her of home. When they finally encountered the Devourers themselves, the aliens learned why the galaxy's monsters feared being called human. Birth of an Empire. The battle for the Devourer home base lasted 18 hours and changed the course of galactic history forever. What began as a desperate suicide mission became the foundation of humanity's rise to galactic prominence. Webb stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last Devourer command ship exploded in the distance. Around him, the mixed coalition fleet regrouped, their hulls scarred but victorious. For the first time in months, no new Devourer signals appeared on their sensors. All enemy vessels destroyed, reported Lieutenant Commander Hawkins, her voice showing the exhaustion they all felt. The core facility is completely offline. Captain Crix appeared on the communication screen, his reptilian features showing an expression Webb had learned to recognize as deep respect. Captain Webb, our boarding teams have secured the Devourer Central Command Complex. You need to see what we found. The discovery changed everything. The Devourers hadn't been invaders from outside the galaxy. They were a creation of the ancient Coalition itself, a bioweapon designed millions of years ago to eliminate threats to galactic peace. But they had evolved beyond their programming, turning against their creators. Deep within the homebase archives, Coalition historians found records of dozens of species that had been processed by the Devourers over the millennia. Species that had shown too much independence, too much aggression, too much potential to disrupt the established order. Dr. Vasquez studied the psychological profiles with growing understanding. They were designed to eliminate any species that fought like humans. That's why our tactics were so effective. The Devourers were programmed to counter civilized warfare, not survival instinct. The revelation sent shockwaves through Coalition leadership. For millions of years, they had unknowingly allowed an artificial intelligence to determine which species deserved to survive based on how well they conform to galactic norms. Webb found himself summoned before the Coalition High Council, but not as a military commander reporting to superiors. The political landscape had shifted dramatically. Hundreds of species that had lost worlds to the Devourers now looked to humanity for leadership. General Zefix's crystalline form chimed nervously as he addressed the human captain. Your species has accomplished what our combined forces could not. The Coalition owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid. We don't want payment, Webb replied. We want partnership. Real partnership, not the kind where humans are tolerated as long as we stay quiet and follow orders. Admiral Thorvin's tentacles writhed with anxiety. What are you proposing? Webb activated a holographic display showing the current galactic political structure. The coalition system failed because it prioritized harmony over survival. You created the very weapon that nearly destroyed you because you were afraid of species that might challenge the status quo. He gestured to the human and coalition officers standing behind him. These warriors learned to fight together not because they followed the same rules, but because they shared the same goal. Survival. Freedom. The right to exist without anyone else's permission. Captain Nick stepped forward, her color patterns displaying fierce loyalty. My species pledges allegiance to the new order, Captain Webb proposes. We have seen what happens when strength serves weakness. One by one, the species that had fought alongside humans in the final battle declared their support. Not for the old coalition of compliance and conformity, but for something new. Something that valued diversity of thought, independence of action, and the fundamental right of any species to defend itself. The Terran Empire wasn't built through conquest or intimidation. It was born from the simple recognition that sometimes the galaxy needs monsters to fight monsters, and that the best monsters are the ones who choose to protect rather than consume. Webb accepted the title of First Admiral not because he sought power, but because someone had to ensure that no species would ever again face extinction simply for being different. The Empire's first law was simple: every member species retained complete autonomy over their internal affairs, but any threat to one became a threat to all. The Devourer War had taught the galaxy a crucial lesson. Civilization without the will to fight for survival isn't civilization at all. It's just a well-organized way to die. As Webb stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Imperial flagship Indomitable Spirit, watching human and alien crews work together with easy camaraderie, he reflected on how far they had all come. They had answered the call when the galaxy needed monsters. Now they would stand guard to ensure that such monsters would never be needed again. The Terran Empire was born not from humanity's conquest of the stars, but from the stars finally accepting that sometimes the best way to preserve peace is to be very, very good at war.